Okwaman Kaidasi. Your Excellency, Brasso, Yeti, we are no.
Thank you very much, Your Royal Majesty. I'll answer some of the questions and I'll leave the one to do with gender equality and women to Nana to address. Let me thank Your Highness for the Bible reference, Matthew 5:5. When I go, I'll go and read it and get the divine inspiration from it. But your substantive question was on the cocoa industry and Galamsey. There are many reasons for the reduction in cocoa output. One is climate change. Our climate is changing, and our forest cover is reducing. An amendment was passed to the Forestry Act to allow for mining companies to go into forest reserves. As I'm speaking, nearly 37, according to Forestry Commission, 37 forest reserves have been encroached into. And so it's changing our weather pattern. And so if you notice, in central region, in western region, before you didn't used to feel the effects of the harmattan the way you feel it now. And so until we preserve those forest reserves, a time will come when we'll not be able to grow cocoa, because cocoa likes moisture. And so anytime there's a very dry harmattan, it stresses the cocoa trees. So the next harvest season, the cocoa production goes down. So that's the first cause. The second cause is that you need to make the farm precious to the farmer. And the only way you can make the farmer value his farm is the income that it brings him. In the first 4 years of this government, they refused to increase cocoa producer price. The practice of previous governments, from Rawlings to Kufuor to Mills to my time, is that every year we look at the forex currency to cedi, and then we adjust the price so that the farmers get more. For the first 4 years of this government, there was no increase in the producer price. It's only in subsequent years that they increased the price. But instead of the farmers getting 70% of the international market price, in many cases they were getting less than 50% of the price. Once the farm is not producing enough income to justify the labor that the farmer has to put in, he will not look after the farm. In addition, we used to give the farmers incentives. Instead of asking them to go and buy the fertilizer and the inputs themselves, government used to provide the inputs to them. When this new government came, they came with a new policy that the farmers should buy the inputs. And so if the farmer cannot afford to buy the fertilizer and the inputs, he definitely would not apply it to his farm. And that's why we've seen an increase in swelling shoots, in black pod disease, because many of them do not have the inputs to spray the farm against these diseases. Then the third one is the attraction of galamsey. When gold is found under the ground, Minerals Commission gives the company the right to go in. And they can go and mine, but they are supposed to compensate the farmer. I think that the cocoa and the tree cover is more important than the gold under the ground. That gold will mine it, it will finish. But then what is the effect on our forests, on the livelihoods of our people, our cocoa farms and others? And that's why I've said that when we come, we're going to stop all mining in forest reserves. Because some of those trees existed when our ancestors were here. Some of those trees are 700 years old in those forest reserves. And our ancestors didn't cut them. They left it for us. And we are going to cut them. And what are we going to leave for our children? Savannah, desertification, destroyed environment. And so we must preserve the forest. Yes, it's attractive to get as much gold as we can, but that is like cutting your nose to spite your face. And so we need to take a look at the balance between mining and making money from mining, but also preserving our environment for our children and our children yet unborn. This links with something Your Highness, the President of the House of Chiefs said, Central Regional House of Chiefs, when we were in there, was about the authority of chiefs. Osaberima was a member of the Constitutional Review Committee. One of the things the 1992 Constitution did was not only to ban chiefs from active politics, but also in the various subsidiary legislations and all that, almost all authority has been taken away from chiefs. And so the chiefs hardly play any role in terms of governance at the traditional area. And yet they are the heads of the traditional area. All that power has been given to the district assemblies. So one would have thought that, okay, even if you take the power to the assemblies, make sure that chiefs are represented on those assemblies so that they can also contribute to the administration and governance of the area. But that has also not been done. And so one of the things we're thinking is that in the constitutional review, we must give chiefs some authority in terms of sanitation and cleanliness in the traditional areas. Give them some authority in respect of environmental protection in their traditional areas. Because the agencies that government has that are supposed to enforce those laws are unable to do so. Or even if they do so, they are influenced by bribes. People go and bribe them. And because they don't really have any attachment to the traditional area, because if I'm a police officer or a government officer, I don't necessarily come from the traditional area. I was just posted there to come and serve and go. So, as he said, Osofo will come and go, but Ebusuapenyi will remain. The traditional rulers are Ebusuapenyi. The government officers, the police officers, and everybody will come and go, but it's the chiefs who will remain with their people in the traditional area. So the time has come, and I'm going to talk about the constitutional review when we activate it again, to see how we can amend the constitution so that we give chiefs some authority within their rural areas for issues like sanitation, issues like environmental protection, and so on and so forth. So that is something that will be expatiated more in our manifesto when we launch it. And the good news is we're coming here to come and launch the NDC manifesto. And then, with regards to stable power, Nana also talked about the power of the president. That will come in the constitutional review. Our blessed Vice President, Professor Tamils, instituted the constitutional review commission, of which Nana was a member. And they did extensive work. They went around the whole country and they presented their report. Their report was accepted, a white paper was issued, and Professor Mills appointed the Constitutional Review Implementation Committee to begin the implementation of the Constitutional Review. Unfortunately, somebody went to court and restrained the process from going forward. The Supreme Court took a long time before it gave its ruling, and its ruling cleared the way for us to continue. But if you remember, the Supreme Court gave its ruling before the end of 2015, and the next year, 2016, was an election year. And so we didn't have enough time. Some of the things required referenda and other things to be able to amend. And so the decision my cabinet took was that let's leave it so that the next government will continue the process. Unfortunately, the next government came and they have not taken any interest in the constitutional review process. The only part they were interested in was political parties' participation in district assembly elections. That's all. And when that didn't happen, they just abandoned the rest. But I want to assure you that we're going to take up the constitutional review process when we come into office and push it to its logical conclusion, so that some of the issues that will make the constitution a living document and make it work for our people long into the future. We've used this constitution for more than 30 years. There's a time for us to look at it again. As Nana said, it gives a lot of power to the president. I'm told that the president makes thousands of appointments. And I think that we can amend the constitution to put checks and balances. The constitution was okay, and I think that we've seen presidents who have come and gone. President Rawlings came, President Kufuor came, Atta Mills came, I came, and it is probably only under this administration that, you know, some aspects of the Constitution have been pushed to their limit, because the Constitution gives you powers to make appointment. The President has appointed in every sector, including the courts, packed the courts. Out of almost 180 something high court judges, only about 18 of them were appointed by previous administrations. If you take the appeals court, out of almost 50 something judges, only about 8 remain who were appointed by Rawlings, Kufuor, myself and Atta Mills. And so it has now opened our eyes to the fact that no, maybe a time will come when a president will come who will take advantage of that constitution. And so we must put the checks and balances so that any president who comes would know where his limits are in terms of doing these things. For instance, the Supreme Court has no cap. But the Constitutional Review Committee recommended 15 as the cap for the Supreme Court. Unfortunately, we didn't pass it. A president can come, for instance, recently they recommended that we should push it up to 20. And so I agree with Nana that we should look at the Constitution and review it so that we clearly define the limits where the president cannot go beyond. Stable power is important. If you remember, in my time we had the energy crisis. It came as a result of us not being able to put in enough energy over the years. Ghana's demand for energy is growing by between 10 and 12% a year. And so every government must come and put something in. Every government must come and expand the power so that we're able to keep up. Unfortunately, after the Abuadze thermal plant was built, no significant addition was done to our power. And yet every year 10 to 12% increase. So by the time I came into office, the demand had far outstripped supply. And so we had power outages. I spent 3 years of hard work resolving that issue. We brought in extra generation. We brought in the car power plants. We brought in the Ameri plants. Indeed, it was the fastest mobilization of power in the history of Ghana. We mobilized 500 megawatts within 18 months. And that solved the power problem. But there was also the financial part. We didn't have money to pay the deficits that ECG was facing in terms of paying for the independent power producers, because the power producers are different from ECG. They produce the power and supply to ECG, and ECG must collect the revenue to pay them for the power. But there was always a shortfall. And so we introduced the Energy Sector Levy Act, which was supposed to bring additional money, and part of it was supposed to go to compensate the IPPs. What did this government do? They collateralized the ESLA. So as I speak today, ESLA is in debt. And so the revenue that it should bring to help to cushion the payments to the independent power producers is not available. And so the simple reason why we're having power outages today is that government cannot purchase fuel to run the plants, because government is supposed to supply the IPPs with the fuel, and they are supposed to provide the electricity. Unfortunately, another aspect is that we have a lot of gas. I brought 2 new oil fields on stream with more gas, and as I speak, our gas supply is able to satisfy about 70-75% of our demand. The other 25% we have to buy crude oil to come and fire, or diesel to fire, and we all know that's very expensive. And so we were looking to expand gas supply. Talo has more gas fields that they want to bring on. ENI Sankofa has more gas fields they want to bring on. Because we're able to cover 100% of our need with gas, then it will reduce how much we are spending on fuel. Unfortunately, there was a case that arose between an oil company and ENI. They went to court, and in the courts they moved a contempt motion against ENI. So ENI's expatriate staff all had to flee to Cote d'Ivoire, and they've been there since. So the money that they should have invested here to expand our gas production, they went and invested it in Cote d'Ivoire. And Cote d'Ivoire has made a major discovery of oil and gas during this period. And so our hope is that when we come back, fortunately the Court of Arbitration has ruled on the matter, and it has set aside the unitization that government of Ghana was trying to impose. And so it has asked government of Ghana and that company to go back and negotiate. But this is how many years? 4 years too late. The president should have intervened and resolved this matter before it came this far. And so we hope that they're able to negotiate. If they are not, it is going to attract my attention from day one when I come to resolve that matter so that we can bring extra gas on stream and move all our plants onto gas. We must also look at expanding solar. We have a lot of sunlight. And so we must look at alternative power sources by putting in solar so that we can make sure our power system is more reliable. Central region has a comparative advantage when it comes to tourism. And we must work together to make sure that we're able to fully exploit that advantage. One is the traffic that you have to take to come here. If you're coming, you spend more time in traffic than you should have spent if you were coming. I mean, Central region used to be a 1.5 to 2 hours road trip. Today you can spend, especially at weekends, you can spend 5 hours in traffic alone. Happily, the contract for Accra-Winneba dualization has been awarded, and you can see that there's some work going on. Unfortunately, there's no dedicated funding for it. There's no loan. So it's GOG, and you know how this GOG budget is. But I just want to commit to you that when we come, we will continue funding that project so that the dualization takes place. Because a lot of the traffic is between Accra and Winneba, and then again Mankasim. And so we will not only continue funding that project from Accra to Winneba, but we'll start the dualization from Winneba to Cape Coast so that we make it dual carriage. It will make it easier for tourists to drive and come and enjoy the benefits that Central Region has to offer. We'll also reintroduce the young people who used to clean our beaches. If you remember, during our time, we had these young people. We paid monthly something to make sure the beaches are clean, because everywhere in the world they want beautiful sandy beaches, but they won't come to a beach where people are, not observing sanitation. Others are going and doing unpleasant business at the beach, and the plastic all over the place. They won't come. And so we'll get all the communities on the coastal side. We will employ these young people who currently are not working, and they will clean our beaches, make sure they are clean. We'll put bylaws so that anybody who goes and tries to do that smelling business on the beach, will arrest him and deal with him, so that we keep the beaches clean for ourselves and for tourists, so that they can bring their income in. I think Osabarima's question and that of His Royal Highness the Vice President of the House are both the same about abandoned projects. I've already said that when we come, we're going to concentrate on finishing all abandoned projects. All projects that have been abandoned, And so we already have we have a special team that is taking inventory of all those projects district by district. And when we come with that inventory, we're going to make provision in every year's budget for continuing and finishing those abandoned projects. Like I said, we're not going to be in a hurry to start new projects. We would rather finish the abandoned projects so that after we have done that, then we can continue with the other project. Nana Mankasim, it can't be true that the opposition is against the lithium project, because why do they call us the minority? We don't have the numbers. They are more. There are 138 of them. And so how can we stop anything? If they want to pass it, they'll pass it because they have the numbers. Parliament is the last stage before mining starts. And so I think that they want to take their time and make sure that everything in there is in order. But I'll add my voice to yours and when I go, I'll ask our side, the minority, to, help expedite action on that particular project, because research is going on and new sources for these electric vehicles are being discovered beyond lithium. Recently, the Japanese have discovered some other way of creating these electric vehicles that don't use lithium. And so as these inventions are coming, right now lithium is the favored choice for batteries for electric vehicles. But if we don't mine it quickly, a time will come they'll discover something else, and the value of lithium will go down. It has already come down with some of the new inventions that are being announced. So if we have this resource, the better we mine it as quickly as possible and take advantage of it. Otherwise, if time passes by, we have what we call stranded assets. You have an asset, but it's stranded. There's no longer any need for it. And so I think that is something, this is a national cause. If that revenue comes, it's going to come to help the whole nation, not only Mankesem. So it's something that all of us must support. So I'll find out what is blocking it. And Nana, me and you are on the same wavelength. We'll work together to make sure that this thing goes forward. We should be decent in our discourse. Our father was Professor Mills Asumdwe Hene, the king of peace. He loved peace and he brought us up. And so if you notice, I'm a man of peace. I never ever rabble rouse. And we encourage our supporters to follow in the same vein. And your own daughter Nana is a very peaceful person. She's a mother. Of course, she wouldn't want to see any violence in our country. And so we send that same signal to our people. Often when I go through the media and things and I see one of our people has said something that is a bit, out of character, I call and I say, oh, tone down your discourse a bit. And so Nana, we recognize what you've said. We will continue to behave as peacefully as we can. But we'll also beg that you speak to the other side. There's a proverb that Utu Jamafo, now we're to Momonesofo. And we also beg that you speak to the other side. Because normally what causes the violence is injustice. When things are not done the right way and you can see that you are being cheated, often people will not sit and be cheated. And so let's advise all of us, including the government. They are in government. They control the police. They control the army. If on election day they put out people like they did at Ayawaso West Wogon and injured our people because they wanted to go into our parliamentary candidate, somebody had told them that there were weapons in our candidate's house. And so they came without a warrant. They wanted to force their way in. And there was an altercation and they opened fire. And all of them were in mask, a Zugu mask and all that. Up to now, I went and visited one of the boys. He was a potential football player. His life has been destroyed. He can't do anything. He's sitting at home. And so when things like that happen, then it also makes us feel that the state is not available to protect us. And so people take the law into their hands. For the first time in our history, 8 of our citizens were killed in an election just because they were going about their civic duty. And there's been no investigation, no compensation to their families, nothing. It's like the government just doesn't care. So when it happens like that, and you think that the state is not able to protect you, then people take the law into their hands. And so we would just beg that anytime they also come here, tell them that they are in government and they have the responsibility. If you are president, you have the responsibility to ensure there are peaceful elections. When I was president, it was my duty to make sure that elections were peaceful. And so it's the duty of the president to make sure that these elections are peaceful. And please tell him that it's not in his mouth to determine who he will hand over to. He should just promise that when the elections are held, whoever wins, you will hand over. But you can't say you won't hand over to John Mahama. If the people of Ghana say it's John Mahama they want and they elect me, you will have to hand over to me. And so we will appeal to you to also advise the president and his followers about that. Like I said, the vice president talked about abandoned projects. I've answered that. Let me apologize for the minority leader and the Central Regional Caucus in Parliament. Today is the last day of sitting, and there are several issues that they have to work on. And so yesterday, the minority leader, Addo Over, he came to my house and apologized. He said he knows we are coming to the Central Region, and he and all his MPs should be here to support us. But unfortunately, because of the work they have to do in Parliament today, they are unable to join us. So he said when I come, I should actually apologize on their behalf and explain why they've not been able to come. That's why you don't see him and his followers here today. I thank you very much.